The COVID-19 vaccines can be our chance to get back to our plans, to get back to each other, to life. But it's okay to have questions, like, how were the vaccines tested? In rigorous clinical trials among adults of diverse backgrounds. Find the latest information at getvaccineanswers.org.
As a community, we build empathy, curiosity, joy, and connection when we share stories with you. Welcome to Storytellers Project, part of the USA Today Network.
Hello, I'm LeBron Hill, opinion columnist with the Tennessean, your MC for tonight's Storytellers Project show. We so appreciate you taking a chance on live storytelling and sharing your evening with us. Tonight, we're joining Humana and 5 Americans from across the nation to create community. Since 2016, the Storytellers Project has brought more than 100 shows each year to communities across the country. But we're online only still this year because while it feels unsafe to be together in theaters, it feels necessary to be together online. So we've handpicked incredible, inspiring storytellers to bring you My Family, My Culture. So please help me welcome our storytellers from across the South region. First up, we have Rhea Carmen, Brandon J. Gibson, Marina K. Murphy, and Brittany Cook. Look at these awesome storytellers, man. Thank you guys for doing this tonight. I can't wait to hear the stories.
Thanks to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to know what tonight is going to be. It's not going to be a TED Talk, a Toastmasters, a how-to talk, an inspirational speech, an educational lecture, or even a slideshow. We won't sell you anything but maybe a great subscription. This is storytelling. Storytelling is based on visiting. You open your heart and your mind, and you pay attention to a person you care about and want to feel closer to. So we invite you to do that tonight. Some of these storytellers will be polished and professional. Some will be casual and conversational. We ask you to receive all of them because that's how community change happens. We believe creating empathy and understanding is vital at all times, and especially in times of uncertainty. So please help me welcome our first storyteller, Rhea Carmen, aka Rhea Sunshine from Knoxville, Tennessee, who knows that more than just your looks are passed down in a family. Please take it away.
Well, we all learn things, life lessons from our parents. My mother, she taught me how to be serious and focused, how to be a lady. My father taught me to be artistic and follow my heart. The dichotomy of their personalities found a way to blend itself into the person of Rhea. They taught me lessons that I have carried with me throughout my life. Lessons about God, who to love, how to look at myself as beautiful, to always respect my mother as queen, and the joy of laughing out loud. I will never forget the day that I learned the beauty of laughter and the liberation it provides. We were at church, and I'm not exactly sure what was funny, but I remember hearing my dad's laugh over everything. It bellowed deep, and it filled the entire sanctuary. My mother, being that composed queen that she always has been, was embarrassed. She said you could see every tooth in my father's mouth, but he didn't care. He continued laughing like it was salvation in the moment, as if it was washing him clean of the worries of this world, and like that laugh was all that mattered in the moment. Prior to that moment, I had always covered up my mouth when I laughed. I was afraid that I was too loud, not ladylike enough, and that somebody would be offended by my freedom to just allow myself to laugh. He changed my mind that day. He made it okay to be goofy and loud and laugh until tears ran down my face. We used to sing this song that said, "A merry heart is good like a medicine. A merry heart is good like a medicine." I guess my father taught me that lesson. He taught it to me without ever uttering a word. He simply lived that lesson of healing himself through laughter. The day before he died, we sat in his hospital. We sang together and we laughed together because that is what we did. He told me, "No tears, baby girl, just a smile, and you can make it through." Well, now I'm the parent. 2 boys, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. So my hands are always full, but I take every chance I get to teach my boys life lessons. Honestly, my friends laugh at me. The way I always take these little things and turn them into teaching moments. Like the time we went for a walk with friends and stopped at an outdoor fountain. You know, the kind where the water flows up out of that rock. And my son just kept trying to stop that water from flowing by putting stones on top of the hole that liberated the water. But the water would always find a way to still bubble out. So what better time than to teach my sons the awesome benefit of tenacity? So I said, "You see that, son? You be like that water. And when people try to put weights on you and stop you from your flow, you just keep on pushing through and find a way." I get to have those type of moments all of the time, reminding myself of how my father used to take these little moments to teach me lessons. Because in my house now, we just let our sons express themselves, their thoughts and their feelings openly, respectfully, but they can talk freely with us. We want them to know what's coming. And we want to be able to raise tenacious, well-driven, outspoken, well-adjusted young men. And it's different, definitely different than the house I grew up in, but it's one that works for us. Yet and still, there's still those lessons that we teach without any words. I always thought it was cute when I would catch my sons in the mirror practicing their laugh as toddlers. They would make faces. And of course, it was adorable. I never really paid much attention until a few months ago. Thank you, pandemic. I listened to my sons laughing together, and it was loud and obnoxious and damn near irritating. I wondered to myself where in the world they had learned that it was okay to laugh like that. And then I realized I had taught them that lesson without trying. See, because my father taught me that I laugh every single day. It's a habit now, and I passed it down to my sons, and it's beautiful to hear their laughs spill over like volcanoes erupting from their vocal cords. I honestly believe that we learn the most valuable life lessons from our parents, both good and bad. I'm not sure that I've taught them all the right lessons. Definitely some they'll have to unlearn one day, like impatience, being a workaholic, and eating too many sweets. But this one lesson, I know I did it right. And there's something therapeutic about our laughter. In my house, we laugh on purpose because it's our therapy. It's our healing. It's our family connection, past, present, and future. I want them to always be able to remember the moments where we sat together, hands on our bellies, heads back. And we just laugh. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, for sharing your story. Remembering to stop and have joy is such an inspiring way to live, and thank you for that reminder, Rhea. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. I love to laugh.
Yeah. And you can show, you guys at home can show your appreciation for Rhea's story and the rest of tonight's storytellers with the like button and reactions. I also want to take this time to thank Humana. Humana is sponsoring the Storytellers Project shows nationally and now virtually because they believe that sharing stories and connecting as humans, online or in person, makes for healthier people and healthier communities. And we need these connections to each other and to health now more than ever. As COVID-19 vaccinations become available in communities across the country, Humana strongly encourages you to consider getting the vaccine and to discuss with your doctor what is best for your health. Visit humana.com for more about what they're doing each and every day to connect you to better health in your community.
It's actually not possible to get COVID-19 from any of these vaccines because they are not using live virus.
Short-term side effects that were observed in the leading COVID-19 vaccine trials included injection site pain and redness, fatigue, muscle aches and pains, joint pain, and headache.
When one develops these short-term symptoms after receiving the vaccine, that in fact is a sign that the vaccine is working and that your body is marshaling its defense network.
It's important to note that none of these vaccines can give you COVID-19 since they only express a protein from the virus that allows your body's immune system to generate antibodies.
Now, next up, we have Brandon J. Gibson from Knoxville, Tennessee, who has the story of a quite shocking tale from his childhood. Please take it away.
So this story begins probably a dozen years ago. It is Thanksgiving. I'm sitting at home with my mom and my stepdad. Now, we've just finished eating Thanksgiving dinner, which for us is usually honey-baked ham. There are only 3 of us, so turkey, that's a lot of that to go around, but we love ham. And so every year we'll get one of those. And this year, we had our ham and all the fixings. And as we usually do, we were sitting around watching HGTV, some, home improvement show or something. And I don't know exactly what prompted it, but my mom begins to laugh and she starts to tell me this story about the first time that I ever had solid food. Now, I had no idea what was about to come from this. I envisioned first solid food. I don't know, kind of anything except for what she actually said to me. So as a little bit of backstory, even though I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee now, I was actually born in Plymouth, North Carolina. Plymouth is a little bitty town in North Carolina, probably 45 minutes from the coast and Knox Head and Kill Devil Hill and an hour south of Elizabeth City and the Virginia border. My mom had me the day she graduated from high school, which is a fun story in its own right, but not the one we're telling today. And while she went to college, I actually stayed with my grandfather and my grandmother. Now, just a little bit more about Plymouth. It wasn't quite a 1 stoplight town, but maybe a 2 or 3 stoplight town. To kind of put it into perspective, the movie theater burned down, but it wasn't doing that well, so they just didn't rebuild it. And the Walmart, closest one, was probably 30 minutes away. It's that type of town. The main entry in the town was a Weyerhaeuser Paper Company, and everyone either worked there or in some way supported the people that did work there. So my grandmother was a nurse, worked at the hospital, and was a very strong, educated woman. I remember her, she read, Time magazine and Reader's Digest and loved to learn and was just very intelligent, very book smart. My grandfather, on the other hand, also smart as a whip, but different kind. He was a slight man with, balding red hair and a wisp of a red mustache and a voice that was so deep it would rumble your chest when he spoke to you. He had an oxygen machine because he used to work at the plant, but fell ill at some point and, always had that oxygen machine where I remember him carrying it around, and he could only read well enough to sign his name. But again, smart as a whip, but street smart, if you know what I mean. And so while my grandmother was at the hospital and while my mom was in class, basically my grandfather would take care of me during the day. And he'd just take me around with him, whatever he was doing. And that was my early childhood. And so to this story, I don't know exactly where he came across it or how this came to be, but again, my mom is telling me the story, and somehow on this particular day, my grandfather came across a dead raccoon. Now, in the country where we're from, that apparently is good eats. And so, without a second thought, my grandfather brought this raccoon in the house, skinned it, cleaned it, dressed it, did all the things that you do when you're about to cook something. And he decided to fry this raccoon up along with some sweet potatoes. And for whatever reason, he also decided, you know what? This is the day my grandson becomes a man. And this is the day that I'm going to give him his first food. Now, again, to set the story just a little further, I am less than 1 year old. I can't walk. My mom says that I was in this little yellow walker, that babies have that they just kind of, push around or whatever. I don't have any teeth. I'm just, far too young for this. But in the country, Grandpa said, you know what? Today's the day. So he cooks this raccoon up. He fries it up, cuts it into strips, cuts up the sweet potatoes, and gives me some. And I don't know what's what, and so I just put it in my mouth and start gumming away. Now, at this exact moment, my grandmother comes home from the hospital. She looks down and sees, her less than 1 year old grandchild eating what is basically wild game that my grandfather found in the backyard. And she goes crazy. I don't know this version of my grandmother, but apparently, according to my aunts and uncles, she had, mouth like a sailor back in the day. And so you can only imagine what's coming out of her at this point. My grandfather is like, what? He's a boy, he'll be all right. This is what I ate when I was growing up. And she's, science, like, no, you shouldn't be thinking, where'd you find this, blah, blah, blah. And this argument was kind of representative of the contrast between my grandmother and my grandfather. Street smarts, country smarts versus science and book smarts. And so they're back and they're going at it. And while they're arguing, again, I'm a baby, less than a year old. I just see two of my favorite people making loud noises. And so I just get excited and start making noises too. And so I'm getting excited. I'm making noises. I'm happy. And also at this exact moment, to the point of my mom telling me the story, she gets out of class, walks into the house and sees Granddaddy Bird, Pat, my grandmother, going back and forth, sees me with, apparently I have smeared sweet potatoes all over my face, and I'm waving around these strips of fried raccoon and just kind of, there in my walker, just chiming in, making a ton of noise. They're still arguing, and she stops at the door, and she recalls to me, she said, this was the funniest, most ridiculous thing I have ever seen in my life. She pauses and thinks, what have I left my child in? Before she starts laughing herself. And she tells me, she says, you know what? That's your first solid food. It was raccoon in a kitchen in North Carolina. And this story sticks with me because nowadays, I'm an opera singer, an arts administrator, a Shakespearean actor. I do all of these quote unquote fancy things. And when I'm standing on the stage at the Tennessee Theater or in the Bijou or someplace like that, or singing at some $1,000 a plate fundraiser, it grounds me to remind myself that, you know what, you're here now, but it all began in a small town back in North Carolina, and it grounds me. And it's a memory that I cherish, even more now, because my grandfather passed away probably when I was 2 years old. And then about 3 years ago, my grandmother passed. And then a month after that, unexpectedly, my mother passed away as well. And so now I'm the only person from that scene that remains. And so it's become a memory that I cherish. And like I said, continues to ground me and just give me something to cherish even to this day, no matter where I go or what I do. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that, Brendan. I am willing to bet, though, that raccoon was better than the actual turkey.
You know, from what I understand, Grandpa was a good cook, so it's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, could be a possibility. Well, again, we so appreciate you telling your story. Thank you again. All right. So we also want to take this time to thank all the journalists from across the region, such as the Tennessean, Knox News, Greenville News, the Spartanburg Herald-Journal, and Independent Mail, who coached all of our storytellers to step onto our virtual stage. I just want to thank you guys for that again. So now let's introduce our third storyteller, Morena K. Murphy from Nashville, Tennessee, who focuses on a different way to serve her community. Please take it away.
So it was the spring of 2018 in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was a state mental health crisis director. I was noticing signs that a dear loved one was experiencing a mental health crisis. And in my heart, as a mental health clinician of 18 years, I knew they needed hospitalization. But in my heart, this was someone that I loved so dearly, and I didn't want this to be true. And I'll tell you why. You see, as a professional, I've been on the other side of a system that is strained and also flawed. This was for 18 years I've worked within the mental health system. And when trying to get help for families, I would call people trying to get services, and I would find that programs were no longer active, people were waitlisted, phone numbers were disconnected. I mean, no beds, no room, no funding. And sometimes people didn't even answer the phone. And so if you ever tried to get help for yourself or your loved one, some of this may sound familiar. People on the other end of those phone lines, they were overwhelmed, and it showed. Sometimes they were rude, they were disengaged, they were uninterested in my questions or my intention as a mental health professional, trying to connect a person who needed help with the services that they so desperately needed. Staff would sometimes be dismissive and rush me off the phone. And this is typically how it went. I would call and they would say, "Hi, how may I help you?" And I would say, "Yes, I have someone here in crisis and I would like to refer them for a hospital bed." And I would often hear, "Oh, we don't have any available beds, but you can call back every day and hopefully one will open up." And so basically it was no, like checking off boxes and moving on to the next of many people waiting in line for help. And on average, for each person, I would call several different agencies asking for help. And it was simply a wall of no, of telling me no. And so now, then here I was standing in the shoes of the people that I had tried to help for so many years prior. I was now feeling what they felt, and I was terrified. I was terrified that we were going to come face to face with that same wall of no. And even with my knowledge as a professional, I didn't know what to do because I expected that I would get the same treatment that I often received before. And then I got the call that kicked it all off, a call from someone that I loved so dearly. The noise and the chaos on the other end of the line left me with no choice. I had tried everything else because I didn't want to do what I knew I had to do. And that was pick up the phone and make these phone calls and try to get my loved one help. And this was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. And to give you an idea of how it felt, so think of standing at the edge of a cliff preparing to hang glide, and you look down And that overwhelming feeling of sheer terror, sheer chaos, nausea, the disassociated feeling as if it's all a dream, and then someone pushes you from behind. Well, this was worse than that. And so I made those phone calls. I couldn't get anywhere. So I just showed up. I just showed up at the hospital with my loved one. I didn't call this particular place first because I simply could not be told no. And when we walked in, I tearfully sought your help. And from that moment on, we were met with such kindness and such patience by every single person that we encountered. The complete opposite of what I expected. And during this hours-long process, the compassion shown to me and my loved one was overwhelmingly comforting. It made the difference. And let me tell you why. So in the room, the lights were bright. The voices in the room were amplified. It was cold. There were strangers. It was loud. I felt like people were staring, even though they were not. And inside, I was just begging for it all to just stop so that I could think. And what compassion looked like that day was the nurse being attentive as if we were the only people she worked with that day. She sat next to me and she told me what to expect. She offered me a blanket, even when I didn't verbalize that I was cold. I thanked her repeatedly. I was a mess. I was crying through tears, and I just continued to thank her. And I believed that this validated for her that she was doing the right thing. And I believe because of this, because of the compassion from that nurse, the voices in the room drowned out and the lights felt dim. And at one point, several other physicians working with us stopped. There were several physicians working with us, and one of them stopped charting and moved the computer to the side and listened. And again, it was this compassion that made the difference. This felt like we were not just one of many, but we were only one. And so the trauma of what was happening turned from a nightmare of paralyzing fear into relief and belief that my loved one was going to be safe and going to be cared for. Their compassion translated into hope for me. And hope was critical. It was the relief that they were going to take care of my loved one and my family as a whole. I could stop panicking. The kindness extended toward me was the key to that peace of mind. And if someone had been rude or indifferent in those critical moments, I would have grabbed my loved one and walked away. Because I was thinking, if your attitude was such prior to admission, then how will you treat my loved one when I'm not around? And so I truly believe that hope is a critical component of life. And so when I think of hope, I think of Chick-fil-A. You know, I always smile when I think of Chick-fil-A. And if you live in the South, you know what I mean. Because everybody knows that Chick-fil-A provides excellent customer service, right? Their staff always has a cheerful and welcoming attitude. And every time I go, they are courteous, respectful, engaged. They're interested in meeting my specific needs. They always listen carefully and get confirmation that my order is correct. And every time I go, I know I will have a good experience. For example, a new store opened near my home and I pulled up with confidence because we know how it can go when there's a brand new restaurant. I ordered a deluxe chicken sandwich with American cheese and butter on the bun because that's what I like. And I had total faith that I would get what I ordered. I pulled into the order queue and someone was standing outside with a headset and a computer tablet, and they were ready and waiting on me. It's as if they knew when I arrived, I would need immediate assistance. They greeted me by my name because, of course, I ordered in the app. I pulled around to the pickup window, knowing that I would get just what I asked for. Inside the pickup window, there was a lot going on with bright lights and noise. But like synchronized swimmers, one person knew what the next person needed in order to get it right just for me. And I didn't even check my bag before I drove away because it's Chick-fil-A, right? I was hopeful that what I ordered was in the bag. And so I feel like our mental health care system needs to provide that same kind of assurance that if you need help, all you have to do is pull up or call and ask for it. Giving people the confidence in the system's ability to help them, that is what I feel generates hope. And that's what drives people to treatment. My professional and personal experience with the mental health care system, it taught me to love what I do in a different way. There's something about having been where someone is that gives new meaning to how you help. It gave me the courage to use my knowledge and experience of now 20 years in the field to open a mental health care center with a Chick-fil-A culture. You see, in a system with many flaws, barriers, and red tape that will likely take decades to fix, we need people, organizations, hospitals, and centers to come together, creating a Chick-fil-A culture that drives people to get help. And more importantly, like synchronized swimmers, we need people to work together to ensure that people are getting connected to help. And that's my story. Thank you all for watching.
Hey, Marinike. That was great. I thank you for sharing your story of hope, and also perseverance. And it was also really great to hear, how empathy played into your story. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. So now we would love for you guys to hear from one of our Humana heroes, our agents in our region who do good while doing their jobs.
I'm very optimistic about what the ultimate impact of these vaccines will be. When you get a certain percentage of the population vaccinated, we can create an umbrella of herd immunity literally over the entire country. That will take several months to occur, but I feel confident that if we get a substantial proportion of the population vaccinated, that we can actually end this epidemic as we know it in this country.
The vaccine is important, and it's a protective measure. Wearing a mask is important also. Physical distancing of 6 feet is important.
The vaccine is a huge step forward, but it is not a silver bullet. And so after people receive the vaccine, we still need to do the simple things that we know work.
All right. So bringing it home with our last story is Brittany Cook, which her story is about love, values, and creating a family. Please take it away.
So it's October 2016. The last 2 months of my dissertation research in Jordan, for the past year and a half, or a year and a half at that point, when I met Abdullah. As all, true romance stories start, we met at an olive tasting workshop in Jordan. And I thought he was really nice, funny, someone I'd like to get to know, but I didn't want to give him the wrong impression, right, and give him my number and think I wanted something. So I was really excited when a mutual friend of ours was like, hey, Brittany, why don't you help Abdullah with his English and he'll help you with your Arabic? I was like, okay, gave him my business card. To this day, I've been a horrible English tutor, not very good. But instead, we've started our own family. How did we get there? I go home at the end of my dissertation research at the end of 2016. We stay in contact. We became close friends. I knew I was going back in June to do some follow-up research. I had a relationship fall apart. We continued to talk, and slowly the relationship started to change. I started to be excited to go back after 6 months to see where this relationship could go. I'm American, from Northern Virginia, Christian. He's from a rural part of Jordan, Muslim. Wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. And so we were just trying to figure it out. one of the most important things to Abdullah is his family. And so he wanted to see how I got along with his family. And it was Ramadan, which means you're fasting from sunup to sundown. At the end of the day, you have a big iftar, which is breaking of the fast. And so everyone gets together for a big meal. And then throughout the night, you're drinking tea, coffee, having sweets, enjoying the time. It's really celebratory. So he's like, why don't you come out to my village? It's like an hour from the city where you're staying, right? This is the summer when I'm back. And yeah, and you can meet my family, spend the night. We'll give you your own private room. And the next day, we'll take you home whenever you're ready. Before iftar, after iftar, whatever. We'll play it by ear. Okay, sounds good. So I go out to the village. He comes, picks me up. We meet up with his sisters. They're great right off the bat, asking me what I want to eat, if I need anything for the night, cracking jokes, making me feel really comfortable. Get to the house. His little nieces and nephews are shy at first, but then they quickly warm up to me, and we're playing games, and it's great. I go to bed and get up in the morning, and often when I'm invited for iftar, I like to fast with the family. Before I was Muslim, I like to fast just to kind of be in the mood, right? Get in the feeling. And I had eaten food before going to bed with his family, so I was expecting to fast that next day. But I woke up in the morning and his mom was the only one up. And she's like, well, why don't you come to the kitchen and I'll heat up some milk, make some breakfast for you. I was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Really. I like fasting. It'll be fun. Yeah, I'm fine with that. She goes, no. Trust me. Like the little kids, eat a little something now, and then you can fast for the rest of the day. Like, okay, I can't tell her no, right? That's fine. So I follow her to the kitchen and she closes the door behind me. I'm just like, okay, maybe she doesn't want other people to see me eating. I don't know. And then she gets straight to the point. She just looks at me. She goes, okay, so what do you want from my son, Abdullah? And there's a little bit of a language barrier. I speak Arabic, but their dialect's a little bit different. And even in English, I wouldn't know exactly how to answer this. Abdullah and I are trying to figure out what our relationship is. And so I'm just kind of, and trying to find the words. And she goes, okay, so you move back to the US, finish your dissertation research, and then come back and marry my son. Straightforward. I don't want any playing around. Just this is the plan. Again, I don't know where this relationship is going. So I say, inshallah, which means God willing. But little did I know at that point that she had the plan down pat. But before we got to that point of marriage, as all couples go through different stages, we had our first fight at the end of that summer. It was the first kind of reckoning of our cultural differences. We went out to dinner. It was a couple of days before I'm supposed to leave and go back to the US. And so I was saying goodbye to a group of friends. And at the end of dinner, I hug all of my friends, and Abdullah and I leave in the car. And he's like, why did you hug the men? And I'm speechless. I'm like, because they're my friends, what's the big deal? And he's like, he's like, why? And he's trying to comprehend it. And Abdullah doesn't even shake hands with women. It's not culturally appropriate in his family. And I'm trying to understand, fathom that. And we're just going back and forth, trying to understand each other, but also being really emotional. And so I just break down crying. I'm just like, this is it. That's it. This is the moment when it all falls apart. This was a fun summer. All right, see you later. Right? That's my internal monologue. But I tell him, I go, okay, if we can't find a solution to this, I guess this is it. And he just looks at me and he was like, listen, if that's where you are, okay. That's not where I am. That's not what I mean by bringing this up. This is so minor in comparison to what our relationship is. And we can work through this. And that was a moment when I was like, oh, okay, this could work. Look at this communication. Look at this respect we have for each other. Maybe we can work through these differences. So the next kind of difference that we had to work through, I'm back in the US, he's in Jordan. We're talking about family and future and all these things. And he was like, I have a hard time imagining the mother of my children not being Muslim. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I saw lots of multicultural, multi-religious households. I had never thought about it being a problem. But for him, and I understood this from hanging out with his family, you know, Islam is a part of daily life. There's 5 daily prayers. The family often prays together. It's part of decision making. And he wanted someone that was a participant in that was fully involved, not just a sideline, you know, on the sidelines kind of supporting it. And so he wasn't giving me an ultimatum, but he was expressing something that was really important to him. So I said, okay, I'll think about it. A couple months went by. You know, I had actually been inspired by him, by his form of spirituality, to go back to church that I had grown up in, or the type of church I had grown up in. And, you know, I was like, okay, I've researched about Islam. I'm like, it's not that different than Christianity. It seems like something I can get on board with. And so I was like, okay, you know, I can convert, but I need him to know, this is my internal monologue, I need him to know that my Islam is going to be different than his Islam. And so in my fashion, I like to write things out. I get nervous speaking sometimes, and writing it out helps me put everything down. So I'm like, I wrote everything out in Arabic. He's in Jordan. I'm in the US, remember? So I wrote it all out in Arabic, took a picture and sent it to him on WhatsApp, like a messaging app. And I was like, listen, this is how I view Islam. These are the things that are values that are important to me that might be different from the values that you hold, or ways that you practice religion. And I just laid it all out there. And, you know, I'm a little over sometimes, and he's more laid back. And he was just like, thank you. Yeah, okay, I get it. I understand. And that was that. And so a little bit later, by total coincidence, his cousin and his wife were in the same city I was in Lexington, Kentucky. They lived on the East Coast. His cousin had only been in the US for a little while. Complete coincidence. So he was like, what do you think if you meet up with them and get to know them? I was like, okay, cool. So they call me, invite me to go to the Friday prayer with them. And I'm talking to his cousin's wife. And she's like, hey, have you taken the Shahada yet? And the Shahada is how you convert to Islam. All you do is say in front of a witness, I bear witness there's one God, and that the Prophet Muhammad is the prophet of God. And I was like, no, I haven't said it. I've said it to one witness, but I haven't done it like publicly. She's like, well, would you want to after the prayer? And so I was like, okay, yeah. And so there's this beautiful moment in which Abdullah's family, by complete serendipity, is there taking a video, sending it to Abdullah, who's in Jordan. And I say the Shahada in front of this group of people. All these women, once I'm done, all these women from all over the world are hugging me, celebrating, cheering. One woman like takes off the scarf she's wearing and puts it on my head as a gift. And it was this beautiful moment. And that was really the foundation, or the beginning of us starting the foundation as a Muslim family, officially. And like our 2 different religions that we grew up in, Christianity and Islam, I found that Abdullah and I had more in common in terms of values and points of view than we had differences. And actually, our cultural differences are what really forced us to have to be really intentional about our communication and to always respect each other's points of view. And so, like I said, this is the foundation that our new little family, our new little multicultural family got started on. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing not only a love story, but a story of identity. I really enjoyed that, and we so appreciate you telling your story, Brittany. Appreciate it. Well, that does it for our show. We're so glad you guys were able to join us. So let's bring up our awesome storytellers one last time, please. You can do that. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
All right. So again, thank you guys for your vulnerability and your courage, your ability to storytell. We just so appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. And hey, everybody's story was, it was so good. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, loving all of it.
Well, that's awesome. Great. We that's awesome. Well, anyway, thank you guys at home for watching. We really couldn't have done this without you, and we so appreciate you reserving some of your time tonight to listen to these great storytellers. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful night.